All right, hello and welcome to Stampscapes Live or the Stampscapes replay, whichever one you happen to be checking out. This is just an impromptu video, but I've had a scene in mind for my little Explorer stamp, and I thought we would do something on a vertical, I don't know, whatever, slimline format right here. And I want them looking up at a very high type of summit. They call it mountaineering, I think, when you go out in wintertime and you do those types of, I don't know, whatever, summit explorations. We're going to build this on the boulders with lichen. I just happen to have that one out already. And I want to use one of the art foamy stamps to give this piece some scale. Hello, Diana. How are you doing today? Okay, so let's see here. This one, I don't want to use my StazOn ink, so I'm going to have to go StazOn, dye, then StazOn. But I want to use some of the watercolor types of techniques on here, so I'll just see how that goes with a dye-based ink impression of this. I don't want to put that solvent style of ink on a foamy type of material. Just I don't. I think it could potentially harden it. I don't know that for a fact, but it doesn't seem like something that we should be using on that type of material. All right, so let's see here. Let's start. Let's start from the bottom and work on up. How's the throat? Okay, let's see here. I'm going to put this at a bit of an angle, just from the nature of them, these explorers, these mountaineers, going upwards here. All right. So with the boulders with lichen, what you do is you overlap, and you can do that top to bottom, and you can also do it, if we had more room, you can build it out side by side like that. So you can build this up as high as you want it to go. What you wouldn't do is you just wouldn't stack it like that. What you want to do is you want to bring it over here, then bring it over here, just so you don't have that one main stamp just looking so repetitive in a single column or something of that sort. Single column or single aisle. Okay, so let's see here. We're going to do this, and then, okay, so I've tilted this over this way a little bit, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this one a little bit out this way. And like I said, the art foamy will give me some extra scale here. And we'll do this, we'll keep it real simple. We'll do it in the just all black grayscale imagery. I haven't used my art foamies in a while. I need to utilize these, get back to using them. I've just been exploring the new stamps completely, but I do love using these. Okay, so let's go a little bit over this way. I'm debating. I'm wondering if I should wipe off some of the bottom of this as I go here. I think it'll be fine though. Let's go about right here. Okay, so there's going to be clouds in between these layers here. You gotta learn some sign, huh? All right. So we're going like this, and then we'll go over. I think I'll use the smaller version up top there. I was going to see if we had room here for that. I'm not going to have room, I don't think, for 3 layers, unless I bring this really close to this one. Because I do want to use this quote stamp up here as well. Okay. So, because that's going up there, I may have room for a couple impressions with this, though. Let me see. Okay, so now the reason why I'm doing StazOn is because I want to use some watercolor pencils with this. And I just think the StazOn is going to be more conducive for that. All right. Now, to push depth, I think it would be better really to kind of do a single impression and then stamp it so it's lighter. But I think I'm just going to go fairly dark on all these so I can, I don't know, just kind of play around with a lot more ease with the watercolor pencils. And I can go fairly dark with this impression. But I am wiping off a good portion of this lower section of these upper and more distant mountains here. So let's go down like this, and I want to leave some room for some additional steps. So you see where this one, I have a little bit more left oriented, and this one I'm stamping it a little bit more right side oriented, just, you know, because it is the same image, it's just a smaller version. I don't, you know, want to get rid of some of that repetitive type of, I don't know, whatever patterning that could potentially happen by using the same stamp over and over. I mean, you know, I mean, we can tell that it is that stamp there, but we just don't want to make it look so apparent. Hello, Linda. Okay. Sign language is kind of cool. I learned a few words and like the alphabet. I think it's back when I was in college or something like that, those years. I didn't take a class or anything like that, but someone I knew knew it or knew some things or was learning it. They learned it so that they could help someone in their in one of their college classes, I think. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and do the quote stamp so I can work around it a little bit. But there we go, like that. This should be a pretty easy scene to do technique-wise. I really like doing this style of a kind of the white of the paper negative space technique. It's just, I don't know, I think it's reasonably dramatic, and it's certainly fast to do. I never know if I get the if I have these quote stamps lined up on my block straight, you know, because there are all these what I call them, extenders and descenders on the letter forms. So I don't know, I just try to eyeball it, lining it up with that first row, you know, with the top or bottom sometimes line. That one came out okay. They're off a lot, you know. I know that. Okay, let's see something. I'm going to try something here. I'm going to blot this one out a pretty good amount. I'll blot it off on the side that's going to go right around that letter, those letters right there. And we'll stamp this one way out to the side. But I think I might have overlapped a little bit, which I kind of, well, I got real close, but that's what I kind of wanted to do. I was thinking if it was light enough, it can go behind some of that. So that's what it's looking like right there. So pretty easy technique, style, whatever you call it, with this. And then we'll put our explorers or mountaineers right here. Okay. Or wait, that looks better over here. See, I'm trying to make this thing where it's going like this. You go this way, and then you go this way, then you go this way, and this way, and this way. That's kind of that little, you know, serpentine type of form like that, okay, for a visual path, because you're kind of making it, you know, you're making these little visual paths for your viewers when they look at something. They'll probably, you know, the viewer's eye goes to little people or animals first, usually. And then they'll follow up this way to the word and read it, probably. But you try to give them a little bit of a, you know what I mean, of a path that's not just like this and then that, you know, because that's not going to be quite as interesting kind of a ride for them, visual ride. Let me see. Okay. I don't know. That's a long distance out there. I don't know if they would be good. They wouldn't really be going to that now I look at it, but I don't know. It makes it a little bit more dramatic. It's like destination right there. They would have to have like a procession of like, I don't know, 20, I don't know, like Sherpas or something like that to get up there, because that would be probably, I don't know, that would be, I don't know, 20 miles away or something like that, at least. But I guess that's why they're mountaineers. Okay, so I'm going to do some trees down here. So the idea is they're still in the tree line right over here, I think. Okay. And then, you know, when you get above the tree line, you know, you get up in elevation like that, it'll look a little bit more, oh, kind of misty and kind of in the clouds. That's my thought with this one. I thought I'd go really kind of bottom heavy here with imagery. But I don't want to stamp this one yet because of all the watercolor types of touches we want to put on here. So I don't want to go through this with watercolors. Okay, I don't want to put watercolors over the top of it. I was thinking about bringing some green into this, in other words, and I don't have like a stays-on dark green. I wouldn't just go with a dark green anyway, because all that black would show right through, you know, a green impression of that. So the only thing I have are dye-based inks and like a pen where I can do a little bit of green embellishment on here to hopefully get a little bit of a greenish tinge in the impressions. I don't know if this is going to work now that I think about it, because I'm going to be stamping it through some other types of media here. All right, well, let's just see what happens here. It's the Stampscapes lab here, right? All right. You need blocks with grids. Oh, that would be a good idea, huh? But then I would have to, then you have to make, I think then I'd have to grid out on the back here, wouldn't I, or something? Or no, you just lined it up with that, right? With the ends there on the grid. Yeah. One of these days, Candy, I'll get something like that. Some of those real kind of advanced, you know, space age stamping tools. Some of those advanced stamping tools. All right, so watercolor pencils, okay. All right, maybe, okay, so, you know, we were talking about those Inktense pencils and stuff. I'm going to add in, I'm not just going for that kind of that ink wash looking scene, but it's, you know, kind of the same technique. But on this one, I'll go, I might as well bring in some other colors here. Maybe I already have them out. Okay, here's some greens. I'll put some greens down on that rock. And here's a gray and I don't know, maybe some brown tones like this, maybe? It looks like I already used the brown before. We'll go with some brown tones. And here's a little bit of a lighter green. I don't know. Nah, they're basically the same here. Actually, here's like a little bit of an olivey cedar green. How about that? Perfect. Hello, Kay. Let's see. Okay, now here's where things. I don't know, if you haven't watched the previous videos, here's the things that's weird for me is working opposite. Normally I'm going lighter top of the rock, darker base, okay? But on this one, I'm going dark to light because this will represent a bunch of like clouds, kind of, mountains coming out of the clouds type of thing. I guess on this lower one right here, I don't have to, but yeah, I think it'd be best to do that still. Or this whole area right here could really be just darker in general, maybe. Okay, let's see. Linda, you have 86, not 100. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, well that's reasonable. 86 blocks, my gosh. That is insane. It that's not 86 acrylic blocks, right? Okay, now see right here I'm just kind of following the shading pattern of these where it's dark. I'll just kind of follow suit and make it a little bit darker here. Maybe on some of these areas right up here, maybe I will just leave it inherently lighter like that, like it is on the design. But just in general, in some of these areas, I will give it a little bit of a darker tone, working it from dark to light, like so. Okay. I think I probably just contradicted myself here, but I'll leave it a little bit lighter up top, I should say. Okay. I won't make it too dark. Unless it's in an area that is already dark, and then I'll make it darker. That's I don't know, that's what I meant to say, I guess. Well, with 86 blocks, I don't know who would have more than that. I don't know if you used to use those for your workshops or what, or if that's just private use. How would you amass that many? Okay. One of the things that I'm doing with this pencil that I would do with colored pencils, I tend to be working it in a certain type of patterning, but I guess with watercolor ones, if you're going to go with water, coming up my directional kind of, I don't know, whatever addition of tone here doesn't really matter. Because it's going to get painted over anyway, unless I leave just some of it just straight pencil with no water wash over the top of it. Maybe that'll look good. I don't know. If anyone's new to this channel that's watching or hasn't seen me use these watercolor pencils, these are really new to me. So it's kind of learning how much media to apply because, you know, I'm not used to something getting darker, you know, adding water to it. Just in theory, I would have thought it would be almost the opposite. If you water something down, you would think it would get kind of less, you know, the intensity and value would think would get duller and lighter, you know, by the, you know, fact that you're kind of diluting it seemingly, but it's like the opposite. So kind of familiarizing myself with, I don't know, that aspect of these tools here, or this tool. Okay, so that's what we're looking at right there. I think we have a decent, you know, kind of lighting scheme working in here. And the way you just kind of create your lighting schemes, just like with any media, not just with colored pencils here, you know, dye-based inks, alcohol, you know, pens, whatever, charcoal. I don't know, people don't really use charcoal too much in stamping, but pastels. It's just the retention of areas of light within your areas, objects, and spaces where you're doing your additions of color and shade. You just leave some areas lighter, and then it will represent light, you know, be it a light source or reflected light. So in other words, just don't color everything out, you know, completely uniform. Leave areas within the forms a little bit lighter, and those areas will, as a result, depict lighting, because it looks like now light is hitting those because I just didn't color it out completely. So here, the thing with the water, when I start adding water on here, what I'm having to do is I'm having to hit the brakes, you know, in terms of where I apply it, because I'm spreading about, you know, this paint around a little bit. And some of you are saying, hey, you know, well, why not just leave it and don't paint in there then? Well, it's kind of going for a little bit of a watercolory look, you know. I want the real washy look element in here when I'm doing this type of technique. Otherwise, I would just use colored pencils, which is fun too, but you know, this is just something where I want to practice with a new medium that seems like it could really come in handy in terms of achieving, for me, it's like different textures. Okay, going in here with some green and kind of roughly applying it where I applied the black. None of it's like a heavy black application. It's more of like a grayscale. And we'll get a little bit heavier and darker in this foreground element. Now remember, I'm still thinking about using those trees in here. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I should just do those ones in Stays on Black right over the top of that. Like down here. As opposed to a dye-based ink. I think Stays On is going to be the way to go. So I should probably stamp it right now before I get too heavy with the pencil, right? I think Stays On would just, it would stick to this better, I think. Hello, Froggy Fresh. So I have enough blocks for the big stamps that just came out. Oh, so you don't have to, yeah. So you just mount them up and then you're ready to go without having to switch out between blocks like that. But 86. You could have done that, like that whole monster map, you know, with, I don't know how many stamps you used on a lot of those pieces, but you can almost have had, if they were unmatted stamps, like a block, you know, for each stamp you used without having to switch out. All right, let's go with a little bit more ink here, because I'm going to be stamping this right over the top of this. So hopefully I get a good impression after applying that ink paint down there. Okay, like I said, I really wanted some green in this, but we're going to be sacrificing some green in this, and we'll just apply those colors right onto this lower rock. Okay, stays on. Please stamp out nice and dark. Yeah, great. Okay, and I want to stamp it over that left side figure. Okay. And let's put a couple trees on the far side of that ridge. Here's a little bit different process for me, too. A lot of times I stamp out those foreground images last, so that they stamp out nice and crisp, you know, and I can work it around my shadow and lighting scheme and things like that. Sometimes I don't do too many foreground images if the object got really dark, because it just kind of, I don't know, it clutters the area a little bit. But here we're kind of getting everything situated first. It's kind of, you know, I don't know, it's a good way to work too. I guess you can see things compositionally about, you know, how things are going to look anyway, and we can work around that, I guess. Okay, I'm just watching where that figure is right there. I don't know if I overmasked or not, but if I did, I'll just fill in that tree area where the mask is right here on the other side, if I didn't get it. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I thought I might have had like a gap here in between this tree and this ledge. If I did, I would just colored in a little bit of a pencil or something of that sort. Okay. I think here's one of those things where you dissect your imagery up a little bit. And I'm just going to go for this one little tree, if I can, right over here. And I'll go lower. Lower than this one, I should say. Okay. Yeah, but Linda, you win. You won the block, acrylic block acquisition contest. That's for sure. I'm wondering if anyone has like 20, you know, blocks. Like even that quantity. All right, so a little bit more green. Which one is this? Cedar green 50. I'm not sure if I'm going to put like a bunch of mist right here or not. I think it wouldn't hurt, maybe. Maybe a little bit. Or maybe not. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not going to put any, actually. So let's fill this area in with a little bit more tone. Let's make this fairly solid right here. So it's like a big dramatic ledge here looking out at, you know, over the clouds or something of that sort. Here's that little tiny rock small stamp that I always use. And see, I'm stamping this at a little bit of an angle because the other ledge is stamped at an angle. Okay. And let's try some of these browns on here. I have no idea what this is going to look like. you know, when I start using that watercolor on it, or the water on it. I should probably do this later, but I'll add in that little shadow right now because it's just going to go back into solution probably, unless I just barely touch it with the water. But that little shadow form at the base of the character kind of anchors it down a little bit. Okay, and here's a little bit of a brighter green. To me, this looks like it's looking a little bit, I'm making it, with each step, you know, I'm kind of making it into a little bit more of a muddy mess. That's what it looks like to me. So I'm counting on the water washes to kind of, you know, remedy that a little bit. I mean, it looks okay, but it doesn't look like a final, you know what I mean? It's not one of those things where I want it to look like that in the end result, but you know, that's, you know, not what these pencils are about, you know. Watercolor pencils, you apply water to them, right? All right, so here's the brown. Actually, the brown looks pretty good. Okay, so like that. Yeah. So I'm used to leaving a little bit more lighting in this area too, but with this kind of whole area up here, I think it would look maybe potentially more dramatic, you know, to create a little bit of separation between our foreground and subject matter and whatever the background, try to make it look, you know, majestic. Okay, now this is gray. So I'll transition this up from the dark black up here a little bit, and then we'll do it from the top down as well, like this. And see that this stamp gets cut off like this right at the base. So let's see if we can kind of carry some of this out so it's a little bit more varied. And it doesn't have this just straight cut off down here. So I think these pencils will come in handy for that. You know, which is something that we're usually not doing, you know, with other types of forms of shading and coloring, you know. I mean, things might fade off a little bit, but it still has this edge cut off down here. But it occurred to me with these pencils that we can, you know, we can extend areas down a little bit farther, like this, you know, where we're just kind of making things up like this. I'm kind of going with the slope right here. Here's this dark slope like this. See, I'm just kind of carrying it down here a little bit more like that. Let's do it with the black here too. So maybe, you know, it'll be a little bit more varied maybe in the base. Like so. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in that water like that. I'm probably going a little bit too much here. But we'll see what we can do with it. Okay. I'm trying to put a little bit more, because, I don't know, I've been fairly, whatever, tentative about it. But, I don't know, when I was doing it yesterday on one of those pieces, I was thinking, I should have just used a little bit more black and just go, you know, just went for it. Okay, so that is that. All right. It almost, we can almost, like I said, if we're doing this in colored pencil, you can just leave it right there, and I think it would look fine. But I don't know. We'll see if we can really make use of this medium here and get it nice and I don't kind of, you know, fluid. Yeah, that's the word for it, I guess. You can look a little bit more, I don't know, potentially graceful, I think, that way. Watercolors are just really awesome that way, don't you think? Or just liquid fluid inks and paints, which, you know, I don't get that in stamping, with the typically with the media that we tend to use in there, which I always like the look of, but I like sometimes some variation, and if we can get it somehow. Okay. All right. Going in. This is a semi-gloss cardstock, by the way. I have a little bit more success by kind of having my brush a little bit less damp. Yeah. And a little bit clear of liquid, so I'll just kind of build it up from the base up like this, in these forms at least. Okay. I guess where it really counts is kind of in these transition zones like this, where you have this kind of brushwork fade off, or I don't know, whatever you would call it. Okay, and coming over here. All right. Working on that transition here. The less I have to depend on my white pigment ink application with these paints, the better. But I know I can always go with them, so I'm not really worried about some of these existing marks post brushwork. Okay, because you can always kind of remedy it later. Yeah, which has always been my take on that white pigment ink toward and in the last of the processes. All right, let's go with this one. A little bit of a lighter mountain in the distance. Okay. I guess we can get some really light shades of gray in there. If I was any good at all with the this technique, which I'm not. All right, there we go. A little bit. Hey, yeah, see that right there? This cracks me up. I was okay at oil painting because you can build up and build up and build up, and you can layer and layer and layer, and then you can put opaque over. You can put thick over thin. All right, but like with watercolors and washes and uh, ink, studies and stuff like that, a little bit awkward in my school days. I had one good day with watercolor paints, and then I wasn't able to achieve it again. All right, let's see. Yeah, Deanna, you might have a different voice, but yeah, just stay with it, and you'll get that nice, sought after kind of a deeper, kind of little raspy voice. Well, a lot of singers would kill for. Again, not making light of anything, you know. Okay, here we go. And, I think up here looks okay. See, those are just things. I mean, you can get like stuff like that going with, like alcohol markers or something like that. But it's a little bit more fluid, I guess, and I wouldn't call it graceful with my feeble, technique and experience here, but just in general, um, I think it's pretty cool, in theory. I will tell you that, when doing stuff like this, it feels a little bit less kind of controlled and, I don't know. I would say precarious, maybe. I don't know if that's a word. I get, but I think it's pretty accurate. When I'm doing it, it's like, whoa, it's like I don't have too much control. And in the end result, the first few kind of applications of something, um, I may not see something that I'm kind of going for. I try not to, have anything too definitive when it's a new medium and technique, though, as I'm doing these things. But I'll tell you though, they say that, I don't know, what is it? We're only really happy when we're growing, when we're learning things and whatnot. So during the experience of my first couple ones, it's like a little bit, it's a little bit hairy, but there's no big deal. I don't know. I'm in a live stream though doing it, which isn't the greatest time to be experimenting if you're going to be a little bit paranoid, which I don't, I'm really not. But okay, what I'm getting at is, after I did those ones though, that this watercolor brush thing, and sitting around, a day later or something like that, I felt like I couldn't wait to get back to it, you know what I mean? Because it was just something so new, and everything's, you know, you might be learning, from ground zero at what something, which I felt like I practically was doing, but you know, uh, just in that first, couple, whatever tests or whatever, or after the first one, you might have learned more in that initial kind of test experiment than maybe you would have been doing in, I don't know, whatever your previous, I don't know, whatever 10, 20 cards using the same technique or something like that, just because it is so new. So I don't know, there might be something to that. Okay, now here I'm kind of going for some, a little bit of I'm not trying to transition it, but I'm trying to get these little, varied applications of this paint in here. And when I'm doing things too, I'm kind of, see like this little area right in here, I'm going to remove some like this, just using kind of a clean brush like that. I'm kind of getting that little washy look like that. But see those little washes up there? I, I think, I don't know. Oh, I forgot right in here too. This one was a dye-based ink. That didn't, I don't know, it didn't seem to go back into solution, so I guess we can just use dyes as long as you give it a little, a few minutes to dry, I guess. And it looked okay. All the rest of the imagery was stamped in stays on. But that water-based, I think, I don't know, that water-based, in my case, it was the Marvy. It looks pretty good, I guess. Okay, so in these little areas here, I'm just kind of leaving a little bit of a, I don't know, it's like a little water circle. It's one of those little, when you put a little bit of water in an area of paint and it's dissolving, it leaves that little rim around it. That's kind of what I'm going for a little bit here. All right, so that's what we have like that. In terms of the, oh, dark, a little bit lighter, lighter, and lightest. I don't know if those two look about the same though, maybe. All right, so I guess we can embellish this too. What you do is you add that in there, and if you want a little bit of extra texture, you can go back in with the pencils or the colored, the watercolored pencils right over the top of it, you know? So right in here, I lost some of my kind of modeling a little bit. It's like all kind of it's not completely mono value texture in there, but I think I'd like some additional, I don't know, kind of more controlled applications of shading in here. So I'm going to go in here. The paper's still wet, but it looks like we can add a little of this over the top of it. So I'm just kind of focusing it on these little shaded areas of the rock. All right, and let's see. There was a little bit of a lighter brown, I thought. Huh. Let's go like that, I think. Okay. You like using dye inks as a watercolor on semi-gloss. That's an interesting. So you just use the re-inkers like that? Glad you like it, Froggy Fresh. We'll be adding that mist in here, and I think this piece will be, almost done. That negative space type of cloudy type of thing in between the mountain forms really makes for a quick and easy process. Okay, so I generally think that what do we got in here? I think that coloring with some alcohol markers would probably be better for these mountaineers here. They are stamped out in StazOn, but hopefully, like the water-based worked fine with the watercolors. Hopefully that StazOn is kind of well established and won't go back into solution and smear on me. And it didn't. I don't know, it's just that tiny little bit there, so shouldn't be a problem. Oh, let's go with how about like a beige and red on this little backpack here. So flap here. I wanted a little bit of a warmer red, so let me go into an orange right over the top of that red there. All right, so I don't know if you can see that there. So those are two different colors within the landscape there. And now I'm looking at this, I was wondering, I was thinking about some birds in here, kind of soaring off the cliff or something like that. If I put them right there, it would look like it was like as distant as that mountain. It'd have to be like in here or something like that. And of course, you wouldn't be able to see it right in front of there. So no birds, unless I had some like really dinky ones in here or something like that. Okay, so let's add in that pigment ink, and this should be just about done. Oh, let me add in a little bit more detailing. Let's go in with the paint pens here. Okay, so I'll use some similar colors, to the pencils with the pens here. go with a little bit of, I'll go with this kind of dull, earthy orange too, down there in that lichen right there on the rock. Let's start off with these right here, I think. There's that blue there I talked about, you know, where if you kind of layer it over some things, it can kind of give a nice tinge of a, oh, I don't know, this crystalline, I don't know, looking light, I guess, or something like that. I'll play around with that sometime in the with the watercolor pencils. Maybe I should mix it in with my grayscale. You know, just a little bit more of a, it'll give a little bit of temperature to that grayscale, which might be kind of interesting. Okay. So a little bit of highlighting. I won't be doing too much of it like in the distant objects. Again, I wanted that to look more, you know, washy and watercolor-ish, but in the closer forms, I think we might be able to see some highlighting on things. So on the top sides of some of these rocks, okay, I'll just add a little bit of highlight. I won't do it on all of them, but I don't know, we'll just see how it looks after I add a few. And if it looks good, then you can add more, or we can add more here. These rocks are so textural with all that watercolor on there now. I feel like I can almost do whatever I want with these pens because it's already really textured and varied. You know, so where sometimes when I'm coloring these types of objects, it's a little bit more, it's a little bit of a smoother application. So sometimes I don't, you know, I won't add in too much to it. You know, it's just supposed to represent, you know, lighting on it. So I'll transition some of these tones, but I think that looks fine right there. Just kind of, I don't know, a spattered, you know, application of that pen. Let me see if I can get a little bit closer for you. See on the top forms right there and there. It's a little bit more varied, and here's some orange here. Kind of get up in that some of that like tundra area elevation or whatever, and you get that like ancient lichen growing. All right, I don't know if you can tell, but there's a little bit of warmth to it down there in that orange. Here comes a little bit of our green. I'm not sure if there's wildflowers growing up at, you know, certainly within the tree line, but it'd be kind of interesting to add a little wildflower type of thing right here, or I don't know, or you can add a snow plant or something like that. There's these really cool, bright red plants that look like, they almost look like they're made out of wax. All right, here's a little bit of that blue. I hope that blender's not getting picked up on the broadcast here, but my son's making his pre-workout smoothie right now. Okay, so I'm giving these little characters a little bit of a highlight on them to okay, so hopefully they look a little bit more rounded. I don't know, whatever, three-dimensional. And I'm always looking for my, here it is, my white paint pen for the most amount of contrast. Not the re-inkers, but I suppose you could. Okay, so you use your ink pads in a washy type of application with water, like with a damping a brush and then dipping it in the ink. Got it. That sounds pretty cool. I don't think I've done that before. I've gone with this and used re-inker on this, or some of the art inks, which are dye-based inks. They should roughly be the same types of inks that we use in stamping. But like the Dr. P.H. Martin's, Actually, I'm not sure if it's Dr. P.H. Martin. The Dr. P.H. Martin's the bleed proof white, but then there's a Dr. Martin's dyes. I don't think they call it Dr. P.H. Martin's in the dyes, but I had a bunch of those, or I actually had Luma ones, but Dr. Martin's was the other brand of inks out there, which I think should be a good resource for us, because some of those dye inks out there in the art market, they could potentially be kind of a higher grade of ink, because artists use it, so they're brighter. They might have a few other colors that don't exist, and the thing about those ones is that they don't have to go into a pad style of format, so they can have the consistency the most ideal for, things like brushwork and whatnot. It doesn't have to be thick enough of an ink to not pour out of a raised dye-based pad. Okay, so I'm adding in some of this little pen work in here. That looks pretty good, I think. I'm just kind of streaking it downward, and then where it's going from light to dark like that, or light to darker, and then down at the base here, I'm just coming back into it like this too. Okay. So, and I went a little haywire with the pen work down there. I have too much fun adding in little dots too much of the time, and I overdo it. But then that's where the cotton ball application of the white pigment ink takes care of that for me. Let's see here. Okay. 100% cotton ball into your white pigment ink. Start on off in your lighter areas and then working up right into those darker forms. In this case, it's not a super dark form, but it just reiterates what we've tried to do with just the watercolor inks and the dabbing off of the ink off of the the initial stamp impressions as well. Okay, so on this one, the more distant this more distant impression right here, I'm going to knock it back a little bit more with a little bit of a thicker layer, or I don't know, more coverage of this ink, just so that this mountain in the distance looks a little bit farther back, which it's supposed to represent. So go like that, and I'll bring some of this kind of coming over the top of this as well. Okay, and we'll do it right for this one as well. So you still get, everything that you've done in your impression with your watercolor inks. It's just, it has this additional layer over the top of it. Which may or may not look better, I don't know. I think it looks a little bit more, okay. To me, things look a little bit more, I guess three-dimensional when I add this in there. Yeah, the forms look a little bit more varied too. I don't know, there's a different I don't know, there's a different kind of glow to it, I think, with the pigment ink over the top like that. Okay, and then let's see. I am going to add some of it down here, okay? So they will be hiking at a little bit of that misty fog, and this will kind of tame some of that, you know, menagerie of dots down there that I applied. Let's put a little bit in between these trees here too. I'm just going to put a touch because I like them fairly sharp, you know, against, you know, the softer background. But I'll put a little bit on it just so that the little bit of that light is influencing some of these trees right here. But I think that should just about do it here. Yeah, maybe this mountain's a little bit farther back than this one too, so I can put this like that. All right. So this is my first look at that kind of. I've done mountains and the, you know, clouds before, but not just, you know, with that degree of empty space, and I think it works pretty good with the rocky peaks. I was going to do the tall peak too, but I thought, I'm going to go with the art foamy one. So there's not a huge amount of space on here with this kind of narrow format right here, but yeah, I just wanted to go with the art foamy here, and I think that looks pretty decent right there. So, all right, I think I'm getting a little bit better with my watercolor technique. If I don't do it for, you know, like a week or two, I'll just completely lose it though. You know, because I haven't practiced enough to, you know, kind of get it ingrained as far as whatever touches I happen to be using there. So, but I like the, you know, that watercolor look throughout there. It looks a little bit more varied, I guess, in terms of texture than, you know, dye-based inks and the alcohol pens on top of that, which, you know, is one of my favorite kind of combinations right there. But I don't know, these watercolor pencils like this might play a decent part in my regular, I don't know, whatever rotation of media now. All right, so anyways, let's see. Nicole's going hiking. Did I say hello to you, Jen? Hello, Jen. The terrain will be steep hills and rock outcrops like the bottom of this panel. We will be wearing in my new boots all week. That's my type of hiking there, Nicole. That sounds like fun, though. Yeah, I love hiking to you know, rocks. If I don't have rocks, kind of at the destination, I'm missing something. That's generally where I like to go to, just because there's usually a better kind of overlook. I've hiked to kind of lower elevations before, and you know, kind of if the summit is just this vast area full of trees or something like, I mean, I like it too, better than, you know, nothing. But I really like some kind of perch to overlook, you know, kind of where you've come from or something like that. Sometimes when it's just full of trees, you know, you can't really see anything. And you know, that's a hike to elevation I'm talking about, you know. Other hikes like going to like a lake or something like that too, or, you know, some kind of cool little area or some sort of, you know, different looking destination than what we saw on the entire trail, you know, type of thing. But yeah. That sounds like a good time there. I used to be into this thing called peak bagging, you know, where you're just going up at these, you know, you know, you're knocking off all these summits off of your, you know, checklist or whatever. And that used to be pretty fun. So I learned about dye-based inks as watercolors. You have so many colors. Yeah. It's great to use your media in varied ways for sure. Lots of cool colors to choose from. Yeah, lots of cool colors to choose from, but also so many different color variations through the overlapping or like actual physically mixing of colors too is always really fun to see. Some of my best color schemes in years past, especially early on when we were using a lot of pens, the Marvy pens were as some of my favorite color schemes I just couldn't get again because of all the mixing that was happening in the process and overlapping. And even though I'd go with the same colors again sometimes, I just couldn't get, that same color scheme. Every now and then when I used to use kind of a wild kind of a combination of inks, with different color schemes or whatever, blues, browns, and orange, pinks or something like that, or because I would be using different amounts of each one, I think, and sometimes I just wasn't able to get it. But that being said, you get all kinds of different color schemes. Then I don't know. A lot of times, what those inks were probably conceived for. My doggy is being a noodle. What's that mean? Was there an auto? There was an auto correct there, right? I did a wet brush on ink pad. Looked great, but it faded when sprayed. I added pencils to try and get the color back. That's interesting. It's interesting that when spraying, it faded. It sprayed. Was it dry when you sprayed it? And was the spray like a spray fix, or was it something like an acrylic gloss candy? That's interesting that it would fade though. I'm trying to think of an instance when that happened. If it was the spraying, or if it, I mean, did it spray like, did it look faded out instantly after you sprayed it? Because some inks they'll lose their intensity when they dry. But I don't know, that's when spraying for me usually reinvigorates the intensity, though. I don't know, maybe it's on different types of papers, though. You like the fog, huh, Linda? This one, I think I got it a little bit better this time. I used more medium on the on all the forms, especially tucked into the shadows. I would add like a decent amount of that colored pencil, and then I had more to kind of manipulate and spread around, and then with the wet kind of medium wet brush, I was able to wipe it away like that. So I wasn't doing I think when I first started doing it, I wasn't as much aware of the subtractive type of process with these watercolor pencils. So that's what I feel a little bit more confident with now. Or I don't know, just understanding it more, that you can remove. You know what I mean? We can't remove like dye-based inks really well. But with these watercolors, it seems like they're a little bit more kind of surface oriented. I'm sure it's, it's soaking into the paper too, but the dye-based inks work by staining. And these watercolors, there is kind of a little bit of a slightly or waxier component to it, when you're adding it on. I mean, it feels like a colored pencil, so maybe that's why we can kind of manipulate it a little bit more and do that subtractive type of mark with the brush and water. At least on this type of paper, that's, it's that clay-coated, cardstock. So I don't know how it would work. It probably wouldn't work on like a matte maybe as easily, but maybe we can get like better textures or something like that on matte textured types of papers. I don't know. My doggy went to the dog show, then she came home and dug a hole in the yard. What the heck? What do you mean? Where she wouldn't normally do that or something? Maybe she heard about that at the dog show from another dog, That's interesting. Yeah, she really enjoyed. Well, she probably likes being around, however many dogs were at the show too, huh? Must be fun for them. All right, folks, that is that. I thought about adding a little bit of a, area up top, but I think that quote stamp just looks fine as is. I was, like I said, I was going to put a little bit of a tinge of tone up there, maybe do it with the brushwork or something like that. But I think it looks pretty decent like that, wide open. So I don't know. This technique is really easy to do. And I don't know. There's a lot of other things. I want to do it with a lighthouse too, not with the mountains like that, but with the lighthouse and some rocks around it, and maybe some distant, I don't know, whatever, something in the background, because I think that look like this at the base of like light rocks and waves, or maybe even with the new stamp, having that cloudy mist like that. Can you imagine that a lighthouse in that type of atmosphere like that? It would look real foggy like that. Like what you might see, along the shoreline. I think that would be pretty cool. So, I don't know, a lot of experiments to do still, even with this, I don't know, whatever this simplistic type of formatting here. So I think we could do it with a lot of different things, and play around with that negative space. Or, we got some kind of Halloween thing, kind of theme or something like that. We can have these trees, like tree trunks coming out like this, and you can have it in the mist like this, right? Tombstones or something like that, where normally we would connect it all up with, you know, ground and dirt or whatever, grassy areas in there, but we can have it more as like fog like that, and it would make for I don't know, kind of a cool look, I think. Maybe it wouldn't be so dark though, but I don't know, maybe we just make everything darker, for a Halloween type of application. All right, everyone, hope you have a great rest of day. If you're in North America, the rest of evening here, wherever you are. Hope you enjoyed the piece, and this is my first piece with the Mountaineers, and I really like how they look there, down there, overlooking things like that. So, I don't know, fun to do. They're looking kind of more in, so I placed them a little bit more this way. They can be like center too, but I think a little bit left center for them. Kind of, they're going that way, so. But their destination is that summit right up there. They don't have enough in those backpacks, that's for sure, for that distance. But I don't know. They're experienced. All right, folks. Thanks for joining in. We'll hope to see you in the next live.